Many people are driven to work hard, right? They do a lot of things to become better versions of themselves so they can get the results they want. They think that, just kind of works, right? But nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. We've already seen in chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes that there is a time for everything. You know how some people read that passage in funerals as a very positive thing? But then what it's showing us is that there are extremities in life, and that what is it all about as we go back and forth? Because at one point in life, you may be strong, you may be beautiful, you may be rich, but there'll be another point in your life where you'll be weak. You're going to be ugly. You're going to be poor. Our lives are swung from one extreme to another by forces that we do not control. One moment, you are what you are right now. Another moment, your whole life is turned upside down. We think, as human beings, as maybe some of you are very intelligent, that you can make good calculations, can make good decisions for how things can turn out in life. And we follow our best laid plans. But the reality is we are more like fishes that are trapped in an evil net. You see that? Verse 12, like a fish that are taken in an evil net. That's a more accurate description of your life than you sitting down and planning your whole life out. At any moment, our whole pattern of existence can change. In our culture, some people call this, in a positive way, luck, right? Or lady luck. That's what people often mention when they talk about their success. You know how when any of you read management books or leadership books, like Good to Great and whatever, they often present data as if it's possible to, identify the various aspects that make a successful company. But there's always one thing that people talk about, all these successful people. What do they attribute their success to? Do you know what they often say? If especially they're non-Christian, they don't have a theistic worldview. They say, luck. It was just a lucky break, What do Christians call it? Well, we have the doctrine of providence. In Christian theology, we know that nothing happens by chance. Okay, so the language there, time and chance, God is just talking about it just from the point and worldview as we're seeing it from our perspective. But from Christian theology, we know that there's no such thing as chance. In the book itself, it talks about how everything is in God's hands, right? Nothing happens randomly. God is completely aware of all the events that happen in the world, and they all happen according to his purpose and will of God. In life, though, right, the experience of those things feels somewhat the same, whether you're a Christian or not. Sometimes, your non-Christian friends may say to you, hey, you're very lucky, or like, wow, bad luck, bad luck, bad luck. Right? And in Asian culture, superstition, feng shui, all that, they're trying to manipulate the forces out there, right? Because the forces are just uncontrollable. Like something is affecting my fate, but what's really going on? And culture talks about, lucky breaks and tragedies. Now, what's the opposite of that? The negative expression in our culture of bad things happening is shit happens. Okay, I'm not trying to swear here. I'm just trying to say that that's what people say, right? To talk about our experience if something bad happens. Shit happens. But for the Christian, one thing that we have to make it clear to them is they need to realize that whatever they call shit, it comes from God. And that's very troubling for people when they hear that, because Christians struggle with that too, right? The sovereign God who's in control over all things, even the bad, even the evil, even that is from his hands. Yeah. Can you go on thinking that you are the master of your fate? Can you really ignore the reality of God, this kind of God? When Kohelet says your life is in his hands, he means it. He's not just talking about the good stuff, or like God just sitting by the side, and then only when bad stuff happens, it's like, oh, your devil must be messing up my life. Well, the devil is part of this mix of everything that's happening, but God is the sovereign Lord over all things. You make sense of that? In the last portion of chapter 9, even though life is unpredictable in many ways, Kohelet explains that it's still better to live with wisdom. Okay, so you're going to die. That's certain. And life is full of uncertainties. And even though life is full of uncertainties, it's still better to live with wisdom. But here's one thing you need to know about wisdom. People don't appreciate it. A wise man's work will be forgotten. And much of the work of a wise man is vulnerable to the mistakes of a fool. So verse 13, I've seen this example of wisdom under the sun, and it seemed great to me. There was a little city with a few men in it, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Okay, so this is an amazing story. We don't actually have the details. We don't know if this man like kung fu the king and killed everybody or whatever, or he made some diplomatic arrangement and the king ran away, or he sold his daughter to the king. We don't know any stories, okay? We can only speculate. But it's a pretty cool story if you think about it, right? Pretty cool event. And he's telling it as if it really happened. But that's where the clincher lies. Yet no one remembered that man, that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than mine. Though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. You gotta kind of read like that. The words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. If you expect people to appreciate you for your wise dealings in life, right, even though it benefits a lot of people, well, guess what? Be prepared to be disappointed. Sure, people may praise you. Hey, great job. Nobel Peace Prize. Well done. But very soon, everyone's going to forget. Everyone's going to move on. And no one will remember what you've done for them. Anyone still thank you for something you did 10 years ago? 5 years ago? Anyone thank you for like what you did for their birthday? Nobody remembers, right? I mean, at that point, yeah, they remember, they see you, they're grateful. But people forget. And I mean, I'm not talking about birthdays here. I'm talking about great things that you've done. I mean, just think about even what you know about the people, the great things that people have done for this nation or for the world. Do you guys know people? Do you guys care? You don't, right? I like history. Okay, fine. That's not the same what I'm talking about. I think you get my point. And you may think that it makes more sense for you to live with wisdom, and it makes sense for others as well to choose the path of wisdom. But sadly, verse 17, verse 18, the last word may go to the loud voice of the fool, for that is often heard. Words of the wise heard in quiet are better. Yes, wisdom is better. But sadly, the hard fact is that the fool shouts louder, and there are more of them. There are more of them. Verse 18, wisdom is better, okay? But just one sinner destroys much good. It took so much effort, took so much wisdom, so much planning, so much intelligence to build that one thing, only for a fool to destroy all of it too easily. Just think about perhaps a company that was built up for multiple generations, and then the next CEO takes over, he's a fool, and the company starts to lose money. And politics is like that, isn't it? It took years for wise leaders to do something good for the country, but it was easily overturned by fools in the next generation. I mean, some of you are involved in Malaysian politics maybe, and you listen to things like what, maybe Rafida Aziz or people from the 1980s talk about how Malaysia was developing and how things were great. And you should hear what some of them are saying right now about the things that are happening in their country. I think for quite a number of them, they are feeling this sense where so much of what we built over decades is now being overturned by fools in the next generation. This is the world that you live in, a world of fools. We live in God's hands, right? Under God's hands. Death, time, human evil, the uncertainties of life, the value yet vulnerability of wisdom, and the power of foolishness to destroy. These are the boundaries in which you live your life. Do you get it now? Do you still think that you are the master of your life? Or will you humble yourself before God and turn away from your life of sin, from your vain toiling, from your vain pursuits, from your casual approach to life, from your foolish thinking? Have you learned that the wisdom to navigate in this world does not come from inside of you? And you need wisdom. You're delusional if you think that the search for answers begins with you, as if the answer lies within you. That's what the culture tells us. Follow your heart. Decide what you want to do with your life. You define your own personal happiness. Really? Really? Given all that we've seen, you still think that? Okay, I guess you can. You have the right to live your life the way you want to. Just that you have to be accountable for it when you die, okay? No, the answer does not lie within us. It lies outside of us, beyond life and death itself. The answer to the meaning of life, where Kohelet is driving all of this, the answer lies with God. Do you see that?